Inspiring moment revealed. Cleaning lady teaches 8-year-old boy to speak, changes lives forever. Tommy sat in the bustling schoolyard, the sharp laughter of his classmates piercing through his heart like a cold knife. He shifted in the gravel, avoiding eye contact, his fingers tracing the path of a small crack in the pavement. The words stuck in his throat, twisted and tangled just like his thoughts. To everyone around him, he was just a quiet boy. But inside, he screamed, wrestling with the burdens of his speech impediment. While his classmates tossed around carefree words, he felt like a ship adrift in an ocean of noise. After school, the world outside felt colossal and intimidating. Tommy often walked home feeling invisible, just a ghost in the bustle of city life. But that day, as he plodded past the local community center, he was met with a striking figure. Maria, the cleaning lady, her hands weathered from years of work, yet warm and inviting. She noticed the troubled look on Tommy's face, a reflection of her own childhood struggles, and when their eyes met, something shifted. Maria knelt beside him. "Hey, kiddo," she said softly. "What's bothering you?" Her voice was like a warm blanket on a chilly night. Tommy hesitated, but like magic he began recounting the taunts of his classmates, his voice trembling but steady. He spoke of feeling trapped inside a cage made of words. Maria's eyes sparkled with understanding. She knew what it meant to feel small. "You know, words have power. They can lift you up or knock you down," she smiled, her spirit vibrant. She took his hand, and some of that pressure inside him began to ease. Over the following weeks, Maria introduced Tommy to storytelling in the cozy corners of the community center. They crafted tales that echoed their lives, the struggles, the joys, and the dreams. Surrounded by laughter, children raced around with stories twinkling in their eyes. They were enveloped by the sense of community that pulsed through the center, almost tangible to Tommy. But just when their bond seemed solid, news arrived like a storm cloud. Funding cuts threatened the center, the heart of their community. Tommy's chest tightened. He could sense the fear in Maria's eyes. The whispers of closure cast a shadow over the neighborhood, stealing whispers of hope and laughter. But Tommy felt a spark igniting inside him. Could he speak out? Could his voice make a difference? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Tommy felt the weight of determination build inside him. Can I really do this? He whispered to himself, imaginations of a brave child sparking deep within. With heart racing, he gathered his classmates. The energy crackled as they rallied together for their beloved community center. As Tommy stood before them, his hands trembled, his resolve wavering. Could he find the courage to let his voice break free? Families began to gather for the community meeting, and hope filled the air. As he took a deep breath, he felt the tug of destiny. This was his moment. Would they hear him? Would he be enough to inspire change? The question hung heavy, yet the collective spirit of the community pulsed, ready to answer. Tommy stood on the makeshift podium, heart pounding louder than the chatter of the gathered crowd. Every face turned toward him, eyes filled with anticipation and worry. He felt small, yet somehow larger than life. The stakes were high, and at that moment, everything felt like a whirlwind of pressure and expectation. He cleared his throat, trying to shake off the fear clinging to him like a wet coat. "Hi, everyone." His voice was a shaky whisper, but the crowd quieted, leaning in. He could see familiar faces, friends who had laughed at him, and others who had become allies in solidarity. They were all waiting. "I want to talk about the community center." His fingertips tingled. It was a start. He thought of Maria and her gentle smile, reminding him that what he sought was more than just words. It was about family, friendship, and safety. "This place is special. It's where we laugh, play, and dream," he continued, his voice growing bolder even as his legs wobbled. "Maria helped me find my voice. I want everyone to find theirs." A murmur floated through the crowd. Encouraged, Tommy pressed on. "If we lose this center, we're losing more than just a building. We're losing our connections, everything that makes this neighborhood feel like home." Each word ignited passion like embers catching fire. He could see the flickers of determination in the eyes of his classmates. But then there it was, the sneer of the boy who had tormented him the most, Shane. He couldn't keep him out of his mind, and the fear tried to take root again. What if Shane decided to speak up? What if the words he'd spoken in the past echoed louder than Tommy's? I know it's hard, Tommy managed, swallowing back the lump in his throat. I know people might think it's silly, but together, we can make a difference. I believe we can change this, and we can do it if we all stand up. A ripple of whispers pulsed through the audience. Some nodded, encouragement blooming. Others appeared skeptical, their brows furrowing. The crack in Tommy's confidence widened, but he held on, desperately. Please, let us find a way. Let us fight for our community center. As his plea hung in the frozen air, the silence shattered. One by one, hands shot up. I want to help, shouted a girl from the back. We can have a bake sale. Another chimed in. Excitement surged like a tidal wave, swallowing the last remnants of doubt. Tommy's heart swelled. A plan was forming together. They would rally the neighborhood. Suddenly, the clapping began. It was soft at first, like the hesitant beats of a drum, but gained momentum, filling the space. The noise wrapped around Tommy, carrying him higher. Yet as the crowd rallied, Tommy noticed Maria standing nearby, her smile beaming with pride and hope. But in the next moment, her expression shifted. Concern clouded her features, and she began to shake her head. No, she mouthed silently, eyes wide with alarm. His heart sank. What could be wrong? Had he said the wrong thing? The celebration faded quickly, anxiety replacing the earlier joy flooding through him. Tommy's gut churned as confusion swirled. The excitement in the crowd felt distant now. What was Maria trying to warn him about? With determination still pulsating in his veins, he forced himself to focus. What's wrong, Maria? He called out, his voice slicing through the murmurs. The air changed, thick with tension. The crowd hushed once more, curiosity hanging palpably. But before she could answer, an unexpected figure stepped forward from the rear, a stern-looking man in a crisp suit and tie, eyes holding an unmistakable authority. I have an announcement that may change everything, he declared, the weight of his presence drawing every eye with a sense of dread. What was this news? Tommy's heart raced, and he braced himself for what was to come. Would everything he dreamed be yanked from his grasp just like that? What was the man about to reveal? Whatever it was, it could change the game entirely. The man surveyed the crowd, his eyes glinting under the afternoon sun. Tommy's heart thudded painfully against his chest as he tried to decipher the expression on the man's face. The tension was so thick it felt like it could snap. Hello, everyone, the man continued, his voice deeper than Tommy had anticipated. My name is Mr. Collins, and I'm here on behalf of the city council. His words hovered in the air like a storm cloud, the gravity of them wrapping around Tommy's chest. What do you mean? Someone whispered from the crowd. Tommy shifted nervously, wondering if it was too late to back out of this fight. He glanced at Maria, her face pale and worried, and it pushed him to stand tall. Today, I'm here with some unfortunate news, Mr. Collins said, deliberately pausing. The words seemed to hang in the air, and Tommy felt his breath catch. The community center is facing a serious budget cut. If we don't find a way to raise immediate funds, the center will be closed down permanently. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Whispers fluttered like leaves in the wind. Tommy felt his stomach drop, along with his resolve. This was not what he'd envisioned just moments ago. Mr. Collins continued, we understand how much this place means to you all, but the city is struggling with resources. If there's no money, there's nothing we can do. His tone was apologetic, but the finality seeped deep into Tommy's bones. How could they just give up? Tommy's heart raced, and he fought back against the rising tide of despair. Mr. Collins, we can raise the money, he blurted out, surprising even himself. We just need time and support. We have bake sales and fundraisers, anything. We can't let it go without a fight. Mr. Collins nodded slowly, a trace of respect flickering in his eyes. That's the spirit, Tommy. But the clock is ticking. We only have 2 weeks to gather a substantial amount. If you can pull this off, it could change everything. The air around Tommy buzzed with newfound energy. He turned to the crowd, their expressions shifting from shock to determination. We can do this together. We have to rally, everyone. Let us start right now. He could see the fire igniting in their eyes again, the seedlings of hope taking root. Maria stepped forward, her spirit rising. We can organize meetings, create a plan. Who else with us? Hands shot into the air once more, enthusiasm sparking across the crowd like fireworks. Tommy felt that joyous swirl in his chest again, stronger this time, blending with the vibrant hope that coursed through the gathering. Everyone seemed ready to fight for what they loved. But as the excitement gathered momentum, Tommy caught sight of Shane again, lurking at the back of the crowd with a smug smirk. The fear that had gripped him earlier began to emerge again. Would Shane stir up trouble? Would he tear apart this fragile unity before it even had a chance to grow? Together, Tommy shouted, trying to drown out his worry. We can save this community center. Together. The crowd erupted into cheers, voices of students and parents blending into a promising chorus of resilience. Just as the sound crescendoed, an ominous shadow loomed large behind Tommy. Yeah, let us see how long that lasts, Shane sneered, pushing through the crowd with a mockingly theatrical flair. Tommy felt the adrenaline surge in him again. There was an opening, an opportunity to confront not just Shane, but the doubts creeping back in his mind. He stepped forward, heart pounding fiercely. Just watch us, he challenged, locking eyes with Shane. We're about to show everyone how powerful this community really is. But even as he spoke, a chilling thought swept through him. Was he ready for everything this fight might demand? Could they truly pull off the impossible and save their community center before it was too late? Tommy held his breath, the weight of his challenge hanging in the air. The crowd was buzzing with energy, parents exchanging hopeful glances, and kids nodding enthusiastically. But Shane's sneer was still painted across Tommy's mind. That uncertainty flickered like a flame on a windy day. All right, everyone. We need ideas. What can we do to raise the money fast? Tommy called out, trying to channel his nerves into action. The crowd shifted, eager to contribute. How about a car wash? Cried out Jake, the baseball star who always had a knack for pulling in students. And a bake sale. I can make my mom's famous cupcakes. Piped up Lisa, her eyes glowing with determination. I know some musicians. We could host a concert in the park. Maria's voice rang clear, pulling the crowd's attention like a magnet. Tommy could see the glimmer of creativity igniting their spirits. Tommy couldn't help the smile that spread across his face. This was it, people were rallying together. Let us jot these ideas down and meet again this Friday to get our plan in motion. Cheers erupted once more, drowning out the fears swirling in his heart. But just as excitement was about to fill the air again, Shane stepped forward, this time pushing through the enthusiastic voices. Good luck with your little fundraiser. He laughed. But really, do you think you can make a difference? You're only wasting everyone's time. The laughter that followed from a few of his followers rang painfully in Tommy's ears. The flame of hope flickered low. Doubts bubbled beneath the surface, and he couldn't shake the feeling Shane might be right. Hey, Maria interrupted, stepping in front of Tommy, her fierce gaze locked on Shane. We have unity. That is something you can't understand. Shane folded his arms, still smirking. Unity? It's only as strong as the people in it. And are you seriously saying a bunch of kids are going to stop the city from shutting this place down? Tommy felt his heart drop. Was he really asking too much? He opened his mouth, struggling for words, but the sound of laughter erupted again with Shane pushing closer. It felt like a punch in the gut. Then he heard something unexpected, a voice that cut through the doubts. I heard you, and I think we should listen to Tommy. It was Ms. Henderson, the community center's cleaning lady. Everyone turned to her, surprised. Ms. Henderson was always kind, quietly making her rounds, but rarely stepping into the spotlight. She rarely spoke up at meetings. Can you imagine if every person here shared what they have? If we tell everyone about the center's importance? They'd see it's worth fighting for. Her eyes sparkled with passion. The crowd shifted once more as hope began to breathe new life. Tommy felt a rush surge through him. Ms. Henderson was right. They weren't just a group of kids. They were a community that could show their worth. Exactly. Every single voice matters. Tommy replied, feeling steam gather in his veins again. Let us make this happen. Let us plan together. Ms. Henderson smiled warmly, her approval igniting a spark. And remember, it's not just about money. It's about passion, hope, and unity. Don't let anyone take that away from you. Tommy looked around again. He locked eyes with Maria, her smile bright and encouraging. Could it be their collective strength would drown out the doubt? They could stand together, even if Shane and his crew whispered harsh judgments. As the crowd began to buzz with excitement once more, Tommy felt the hope resurface like a warm wave. Yeah, they could do this together. But then, just as he was about to bask in that warmth, a cold shadow flickered at the edge of his mind. What would happen if they actually managed to raise the money? Would the challenge then be keeping the center from falling apart in the future? There was that thought again, that pit of worry. After all, facing Shane was just the beginning. All right, let us start tonight, Tommy called out, clapping his hands together to stir their energy. Who's with us? As hands shot into the air once more, he couldn't shake the question at the back of his mind. Would their efforts be enough to truly save something much bigger than themselves? The room buzzed with excitement as Tommy's heart raced. Ideas bounced around like fireworks, illuminating the collective hope in their small group. Each suggestion brought energy, and with each voice that chimed in, the shadow of doubt Shane cast began to dim. Tommy couldn't help but picture the community center, filled with laughter, kids playing, and neighbors gathering. Let us choose a date for the bake sale, Lisa suggested, her hands clasped, brimming with enthusiasm. I know people will love my mom's cupcakes. Yeah, and we can all pitch in for the car wash, Jake echoed, high-fiving Lisa as the enthusiasm surged through the room. The burden of doubt began to lighten, but Tommy couldn't shake the nagging feeling deep inside. What if we raise the money and it just disappears again? What if it doesn't even make a difference? He thought. Tommy, we can't lose hope, Maria said, noticing the shift in his demeanor. That's the whole point. If we just keep pushing and working, we'll make it better for everyone. Her eyes glinted with conviction. He looked at her, feeling the energy radiating from the group. They were determined. Inspiration spread through the room in waves, and he wanted to absorb it all. Let us plan a meeting to start spreading the word, Ms. Henderson suggested again, her quiet but firm presence grounding the room. If we can get the community involved, we can show them why this center matters. It all starts here with us. Tommy took a deep breath and nodded. You're right. We need to make sure everyone knows how important the center is to us, to everyone. Let us set up flyers, maybe even an event on social media. The group erupted in excited chatter, voices overlapping as ideas began to flow. Tommy could feel the weight of Shane's laughter fade further into the background. This was a pivotal moment. They were taking the first steps, and it felt incredible. Hours lost track of time as they built plans brick by brick, each idea bringing them closer as a community. Maria suggested they make big posters to showcase the history and impact of the center. Everyone eagerly agreed, diving into more discussions about reaches and strategies. As they worked, something shifted in Tommy. The knot of anxiety in his stomach loosened, replaced with a budding sense of responsibility. They couldn't just hope for change, they had to be that change. But still, what about the aftermath? In the frenzy of new ideas, he recognized the need for follow-up. Okay, if we want to keep this going after the fundraiser, we need to think long-term, Tommy finally blurted out, catching the attention of his friends. How do we ensure the center remains a safe haven? What programs can we start? How can we make sure we're not just saving the center for today, but for tomorrow too? A hush fell over the group, each person lost in thought. It was the first time they had collectively acknowledged that this was just the beginning. Maybe we can start weekly workshops? Suggested Lisa, her brow furrowed in concentration. We can have classes on everything from arts and crafts to tutoring. Yes, and we can involve parents too. Jake chimed in, snapping his fingers. The ideas began to flow, each one sparking new excitement. Tommy felt his heart swell, but the question still nagged at him. Were they prepared to face the challenges ahead? Would they have the strength to navigate the aftermath? As they continued brainstorming, a door creaked open at the far end of the community center, and a familiar face walked in. It was Mr. Warner, the center director. He looked taken aback at the sight of so many kids working together, their voices raised in passionate discussion. Wow, what is going on here? He asked, a mixture of surprise and curiosity etched on his face. Tommy's heart raced again, a mix of thrill and nerves. It was time to put their plans into motion, but he couldn't help questioning if they were truly ready for the journey ahead. Mr. Warner, we have a plan. Tommy stood taller, casting a determined glance toward his friends. And we want your support. As faces turned to look at him, he felt the electric charge in the air. This was just the start of something big. The weight of worries still loomed like a distant storm cloud, but perhaps it would be washed away by their hard work and dedication. What lay ahead would test their mettle, but Tommy couldn't walk away now. Can we really do it, though? He thought. The meeting had just begun, and the excitement crackled around them. As Mr. Warner approached, a sense of urgency bubbled within Tommy. He was ready to speak up, but would he find the right words to inspire even more? Mr. Warner's brow furrowed as he walked closer, his eyes scanning the colorful notes and ideas plastered across the table. The energy in the room was infectious, and even he couldn't help feeling a spark of hope. "You kids are really stepping up," he said, his voice steady but warm. Tommy took a deep breath, gripping the edge of the table. "We want to save the community center. We have some great ideas for fundraisers, but we also want to make sure it continues to serve our community." Each word felt more weighty than the last. The room fell silent again, Mr. Warner's expression serious, as if weighing their dreams against reality. "That's impressive," he replied slowly. "But running such events is a big responsibility. You need to be prepared for setbacks and challenges." "We can handle it," shouted Jake, his enthusiasm bouncing off the walls. "We're ready to take charge." "Yeah, with your support, we can make this work," Lisa chimed in, her eyes bright with determination. Tommy's heart raced at the thought of it. What if they could actually make a difference? What if Mr. Warner believed in them? "We want to keep doing this long after the fundraiser. We're talking about new programs, workshops, ways to bring everyone together." As he spoke, he noticed that every member of the group was nodding, a silent agreement tightening their bond. Warner paused, letting their excitement wash over him. "All right, here's what I'll do," he said, the corner of his mouth lifting into a small smile. "I'll help you set up meetings and promote the events. And if we all can maintain this energy and bring the community on board, I'll support your vision." Exhaling a breath Tommy didn't know he was holding, he felt the weight of hope lift. "Thank you, Mr. Warner." The room erupted in cheers, every face beaming with the realization that they weren't alone in this fight. But beneath the surface of excitement, a flicker of fear still niggled at Tommy. "We still have a lot to do," he thought. The initial enthusiasm felt fragile, like a soap bubble ready to burst. What would happen if their efforts fell flat? "Okay," announced Ms. Henderson, redirecting their momentum. "Let us break into groups. We can assign tasks so everything runs smoothly moving forward." Tommy felt invigorated by her words. He and Maria took charge of organizing the bake sale. Jake and Lisa dove into car wash details. The air buzzed with urgency and motivation. As they split into teams, Tommy pondered the importance of their mission. They wanted to create a space that resonated with laughter, unity, and continuity. But how could they ensure it didn't descend into chaos? Minutes turned into hours as they mapped out tasks, created lists, and even began design concepts for flyers. Tommy found himself enjoying every moment. But the question loomed larger. Were they truly prepared for what came after the excitement? After the planning settled for the moment, Tommy caught a glimpse of Maria staring at him, her face serious. "What's next for us? After the fundraiser? Will we have the strength to keep it alive?" He nodded, a chill creeping in. The reality of sustaining their efforts sank in. "I don't know," he whispered. Yet, deep down, he felt the fire igniting a sense of purpose. Together, they could. Maybe we could do things differently. What if we had a mentor? Someone to guide us in managing everything? He suggested, the idea taking root. Maria's eyes lit up. "That's it, Tommy. We can find community leaders and ask for their advice." Just then, the door swung open, and a voice rang through the room. Did someone say mentorship? It was Mrs. Patel, the elderly woman who had been a long-time volunteer at the center. She smiled knowingly, a glimmer of wisdom emanating from her. "I'd be glad to help you navigate this journey." Tommy's heart raced again. Was this the answer he was looking for? As the group gathered closer together, ready to discuss their next step, Tommy couldn't shake the feeling that this moment was key. They were on the brink of something transformative. But little did they know, a different kind of challenge awaited just around the corner. Could they truly rally the community behind them, or would the doubts begin to creep in again? As Tommy looked from one eager face to another, he felt the weight of their aspirations pressing down. It was now or never. Would they rise to the occasion? The next day dawned bright and clear, a perfect day for the kids to launch their first fundraising effort. Tommy stood outside the community center, the smell of fresh paint and the sound of a busy street filling the air. He felt a swell of pride as he surveyed the bright banners and posters filled with their ambitious drawings and ideas. It was happening. Maria, with her hair tied back and wearing her trademark enthusiasm, danced around him, holding a handful of colorful flyers. "Can you believe this is for us? For the center?" She beamed, folding a flyer that had a grin drawn on it with the text, "Let us save our community center," in vivid letters. "Yeah," Tommy replied, still processing the fact that they were actually doing this. But a gnawing worry danced in the back of his mind. Would people show up? How would they convince the community to rally around them? As other group members arrived, excitement bubbled to the surface. Jake and Lisa pulled in buckets of soapy water and sponges, ready for their car wash, while a few other kids set up tables for the bake sale, arranging cookies, brownies, and cupcakes like a delicious, chaotic gallery. The car wash kicked off first. Tommy wiped his brow, feeling the sun beat down on him. They scrubbed and rinsed cars with laughter, transforming friendly neighborhoods into gleaming machines. Every splash sent an echo of joy through the air, invigorating him. With every car that pulled in, he felt a sense of unity growing. People were starting to notice. But then came the moments of stillness, where doubt seeped in again. When no cars arrived, the energy faltered. Tommy watched as the group, once buzzing with enthusiasm, began to lose their spark. He turned to Maria, whose smile was slowly fading. "We need to rally them," he murmured, feeling the pressure mounting. Maria nodded. "Yeah, let us give them reasons to stop. We can sing or dance something fun." And just like that, a notion ignited in Tommy's mind. "What if we put on a show?" he exclaimed, suddenly animated. "We could perform skits or songs right here. Everyone loves a good entertainment." With renewed purpose, they began preparing. Jake led the charge with a goofy skit that they all joined in on, creating characters that embodied their vision for the community. As laughter erupted from their rehearsals, they pulled in a small crowd of curious onlookers. Soon, a little girl with pigtails brushed up against Tommy, her wide eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Can I join?" she asked, glancing nervously at the older kids. "Of course." Tommy smiled, crouching down to her level. "You can help us make the audience cheer." With that, the little girl jumped into action, fetching supplies to decorate their makeshift stage. As the energy shifted, more people slowly trickled in. The car wash started to pick up as smiles began to spread. Tommy could see the connection forming, laughter mingling with hope. And then he caught sight of an older couple watching from afar, their expressions curious yet cautious. "Hey," he called out, waving enthusiastically. "We're raising money to save the center. Would you like to contribute? You could wash your car and watch the show." The couple exchanged glances before walking closer, intrigued. "This looks great," the woman said, her smile growing broader as she gestured to the performance unfolding. A spark ignited in Tommy's chest. They were making an impression. This was the first step, and it filled him with a sense of purpose. Yet, as cheerful as the day had begun, there were already murmurs of doubt. What about the genuinely tough part, the aftermath? Just as Tommy felt the energy surge again, a loud crash came from the back of the lot. Panic surged through the crowd. "What was that?" Maria cried out, her eyes wide. Tommy's heart raced. "I don't know. We need to check it out." As the group hurried to investigate the commotion, Tommy steeled himself. The day was just beginning, and challenges were on the horizon. Would they be able to face whatever came next together? Tommy's heart pounded as he darted toward the source of the noise. The crowd followed, shifting from excitement to apprehension. He gripped Maria's hand tightly, trying to draw strength from her presence. "Stay close," he whispered, feeling her grip tighten in response. They rounded a corner and found the source of the chaos. A stack of tables had toppled over, cookies and cupcakes scattered across the pavement like colorful confetti. At the center stood Jake, wide-eyed and seemingly frozen. Everyone turned to him, waiting for an explanation. I was just trying to help," he stammered, his cheeks flushed. "One of the bake sale tables collapsed when I leaned on it too hard." Tommy felt a wave of frustration nearly burst through him. They were finally gaining momentum, and now this? He opened his mouth to say something, but before he could, the little girl with pigtails approached Jake. "Don't worry," she shouted, her tiny fists on her hips. "We can clean it up together." That small act ignited a flicker of encouragement within the group. Instead of focusing on the mess, the moment was a surprisingly unifying one. One by one, the kids leaned down to help gather up the cookies. Laughter filled the air once again when Maria snatched a brownie with a cheeky grin and stuffed it into her mouth. "Hey, no eating the profits," Tommy joked, and suddenly the heaviness lifted. With renewed determination, they quickly reassembled the fallen tables, setting things back to rights. As they worked, Tommy realized that this wasn't just about raising money anymore. It was about the bond they were building. This small misfortune was turning into a rallying point. Once everything was cleaned and back in order, the crowd began to grow again. The car wash was once again in full swing, and a mix of excitement and laughter buoyed the atmosphere. People were chattering, smiling, and joining in the fun as they lined up for tasks and treats. Tommy caught sight of that older couple again. They were headed toward the bake sale table, exchanging whispers filled with laughter. Their curiosity had transformed into interest, something Tommy hadn't expected. As he watched, a bright idea struck him. "Let us announce our first donation," he exclaimed, raising his voice to be heard above the noise. Everyone turned toward him, and he felt a spark flickering in his chest. "Let us say thank you to our first supporter," he called, pointing dramatically. "You all know that our community center needs your help, right? Who is going to step up and be the first to ever donate?" A murmur ran through the crowd, and suddenly, the older couple raised their hands enthusiastically, prompting an eruption of cheers from the kids. Tommy grinned. "Thank you so much," he called, the words spilling out. "Everyone, meet Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. They're donating $20. Applause broke out, and Mr. Thompson waved shyly, while Mrs. Thompson beamed proudly. In that tiny moment, something shifted in the air. Tommy could feel it. This was no longer just a bunch of kids trying to save a building. They were creating an event that bonded the entire community. But just as momentum surged, a sharp voice pierced through the noise. "What are you kids doing here? You're making a mess of my property." Tommy's heart sank. He turned to see Mr. Wilson, the cranky owner of the lot they were using. His voice dripped with irritation. As Tommy took a deep breath, he felt the weight of the moment, the fragile nature of their success hanging in the balance. What would Mr. Wilson say? Would he shut them down just as they were beginning to rise? Everything was suddenly at stake. Did they have the strength to persuade him? The crowd held its breath, and Tommy faced Mr. Wilson, determination hardening his expression. Would he lose this chance, or would they find a way to make him see? Tommy stood tall, heart racing, as he stared into Mr. Wilson's disapproving glare. The moment hung heavy in the air, tension crackling like static electricity. Every kid around him held their breath, clinging to the hope that their hard work wouldn't be snuffed out. "Sir," Tommy began, his voice wavering slightly but determined, "we're not causing a mess. We're bringing our community together. We're raising money to save our center so we can keep playing and learning." He took a small step forward, his courage swelling. "It means a lot to us, to all of us." The other kids shifted behind him, echoing their support with nods, whispers, and a few soft yes. Maria squeezed his hand tighter. The warmth of her support wrapped around him like armor. Mr. Wilson's frown deepened, and for a moment, Tommy thought he could hear the faint ticking of a clock, the seconds passing slowly. Just when he thought the old man would turn and storm off, a flicker of something softened in Mr. Wilson's eyes. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "I don't care about your games. You shouldn't be here. This is private property, and I don't need any more trouble," Mr. Wilson snapped, crossing his arms. It felt like a punch to Tommy's gut. But just as despair threatened to drown him, a voice cut through the tension. Mrs. Thompson stepped forward, her gentle smile radiating warmth. "Mr. Wilson, if I may?" she implored, glancing back at Tommy, then at the group of kids around him. "Fine," he replied, his hands still crossed, though his annoyance seemed to waver under her gaze. "Tommy and these kids have shown so much enthusiasm today. They're building something positive," she continued, her voice steady. "Sometimes, it's important to let the young ones express themselves, even if it's not perfect. They're learning about teamwork, about community." Mr. Wilson shifted slightly, and that softness returned, just a flicker, but enough for Tommy to see. Mrs. Thompson pressed on. "What if you let them stay? Maybe it could bring you some customers too. You could even join in helping them. It might turn out to be quite fun." Tommy's heart fluttered with hope. He glanced at Mr. Wilson, searching for a sign that he might relent. I don't have time for fun, Mr. Wilson grumbled, but the weight of his words felt lighter. But I suppose if they clean up after themselves, he trailed off, gaze softening just a tad. Absolutely, Tommy said, his voice rising in excitement. We promise to leave everything better than we found it. Mr. Wilson stared at him, and Tommy held his breath once more, waiting. Everyone in the crowd leaned in, sensing they were at a tipping point. Fine, Mr. Wilson finally exclaimed, exasperated yet somehow softened. Just be mindful. And if I see one cupcake wrapper on my lot, Tommy's heart soared with relief and sheer joy. The crowd erupted in cheers, the sound wrapping around him like a warm blanket. They had done it. They had turned a no into a yes. Thank you, Mr. Wilson, Tommy shouted, a grin stretching wide across his face. Yeah, thank you, echoed the kids, their voices ringing with triumph as cheers filled the air. Tommy turned to see Maria's face beaming as brightly as the sun. It was a pivotal moment, one filled with newfound hope and possibility. But as the celebration began, Tommy couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The puzzle pieces were starting to fit together, connecting people in ways he hadn't expected. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the car wash area, followed by frantic voices. Tommy's stomach dropped. What was happening now? Let us go, he urged, racing toward the commotion, adrenaline racing through him once more. What chaos awaited them this time? Would they be able to face it together? Tommy sprinted through the chatter and laughter, his heart quickening with fear and concern. He turned the corner to find a swarm of kids at the car wash, a bucket of soapy water spilled across the pavement, and Jake frantically trying to reassemble a flimsy car wash sign that had blown down. What happened? Tommy called out, breathless. The sign fell over. Jake shouted back, his face flushed with panic. The parents think we're just messing around. Panic rippled through the crowd, but in that chaotic moment, something unexpected happened. Tommy felt a surge of determination. This is just a bump. We can still pull this off. He could see Maria rallying the kids, her voice rising above the cacophony. All right, everyone, let us clean it up. Show them we mean business. Her spirit was contagious, and Tommy felt the electric energy start to rekindle. Tommy rushed over, joining Jake at the sign. They worked together to prop it back up, their excitement racing back into the air. We can make this a win. In moments, laughter replaced the tension, and suddenly, the car wash resumed, smiles returning as kids ran back with soapy sponges and water balloons, turning setbacks into moments of joy. One by one, more cars rolled in, curious families eager to see what the ruckus was about. Tommy felt a flutter in his heart. They were making an impact, a ripple in the community. Then, in the middle of it all, the promise of the celebrations faded into the periphery, replaced by the blaring of shadows on the other side of the lot. Tommy glanced over to see Shane, flanked by a few snickering friends, leaning against a car with his arms crossed, eyes glinting. You think this is going to change anything? He sneered, his voice dripping with derision. But Tommy reminded himself of all he had overcome. It's not about him. He thought fiercely. Together, we've already made a difference. Tommy shouted back at Shane, his voice ringing with newfound conviction. And we're not stopping. We'll show you what real teamwork looks like. The kids around him cheered, emboldened by Tommy's determination. They continued to wash and dance, their laughter mingling with the rhythm of the community coming together. As the day rolled on, the community came alive. Parents began to stop by not just for a car wash or a treat, but out of curiosity for the cause. Tommy could feel the bond they were forming, breaking down barriers and bringing warmth into the cool afternoon air. Hours later, exhausted but exhilarated, Tommy and his friends gathered around to count the money they had raised. Old Mr. Wilson stopped by, scratching his head. I have to admit, you kids did pretty well, he grumbled, glancing over the large pile of cash with begrudging admiration. We're not done yet, Tommy exclaimed, his heart racing with hope. We still have more ideas. This is just the beginning. And as they shared plans for their next fundraising endeavors, Tommy's spirit surged with the realization that the community had finally joined him. The kids were no longer alone together, they had banded together, fighting for something greater. But a different kind of challenge was looming ahead. With the sun setting and shadows stretching across the lawn, Tommy couldn't shake the worry gnawing at his heart. Will we be able to sustain this? Will they continue supporting us? He thought. Turning to Maria, who was tossing flyers in the air, laughing. "Tommy," she shouted, tossing him a flyer with a grin. "We can build on this. This is our chance to create something beautiful." And at that moment, he realized this was not just about saving a community center. It was about forging a new path for everyone. As the last rays of light flickered behind the horizon, Tommy felt his worries subside. They were stronger together. They would face whatever came next. Drained but more alive than ever, Tommy caught sight of Maria leading the others in a dance. He joined them, feeling the warmth not just of the sun, but of the community igniting around him. Cheers erupted, the joy crashing over him like a wave, pushing him higher, lifting him to heights he had always dreamed of. In those moments of laughter, of unity, he saw the future shimmer. Tommy closed his eyes, and for the first time, he felt that every step they took would lead them home. And as night fell, Tommy made a promise to himself. They would fight together for the center, for each other, for their community. In that spirit, they forged their commitment. And that was just the beginning. Now it's your turn to be part of this journey. You need to subscribe now to keep the energy alive and not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help this story reach more people. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. We want to hear from you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, we can inspire change.